too dangerous to be left alive.
Bioships have just arrived to Stellaris. Today we're going to go through every detail the developers have just released to find out exactly how strong these ships are. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, some of them are simply bonkers. Have you ever wished your battleship was not just twice as powerful, but 4 times as powerful? Ladies and gentlemen, now that dream can become a reality. Let's dive in and find out what the hell is going on. In Biogenesis, the developers are adding 2 distinct biological ship sets with unique ship classes and technology. The developers' goals in adding biological ships to Stellaris were to ensure that they are not only different in appearance from mechanical ships and space fauna, but also in gameplay. Thus, the key mechanical differences are, when using biological ships, corvettes, frigates, destroyers, cruisers, and battleships are now replaced with Maulers, Weavers, Harbingers, and Stingers, each of which have 3 distinct growth stages. Biological ships, including starbases, megastructures, and stations, have their primary construction resource converted from alloys or minerals into food, and their energy upkeep likewise replaced with food upkeep. Can we just have a moment to listen to what we just heard there? Not only will our ships be created using food, but also our starbases, our megastructures, and our stations if we choose to pick one of the 2 biological ship sets at the game's start. That is absolutely massive. Now, first off, I'm a bit disgusted. That makes farmers the most important job pretty much in an empire that uses a biological ship set, because that food is basically going to be alloys. Straight up, it's going to be alloys in terms of buying the damn things, and it's going to be energy in terms of upkeep. Overwhelmingly, biological ship technologies are in the society research biology focus instead of the familiar engineering research voidcraft. So for empires that have biological ship sets, now probably the best research tree for you is going to be the society research tree. That's also going to open up the game a little bit, and I believe make it a little bit more powerful for biological ship set empires, because they will have their ship technologies in society, yet still have all of their industrial technologies in engineering, and that should give a better spread. Rather than kind of having society as something of a dead tree, there will be good technologies in all 3 categories. And of course, in classic Stellaris fashion, developers have kept the flavour and narrative around biological ships intentionally vague, just enough to let you roleplay them however you like. Maybe they're an extension of your devouring swarm, just another drone in space. Or perhaps they're advanced biomachines, the pinnacle of your scientific achievement. I like to think they are like the whale ships from the Zeely sequence that are mercenary whales, space whales that are for hire, that can be, have people running around inside them. If anyone's read the Zeely sequence, any of those books, let me know in the comments. Love to hear from you. Here we can see the names of the 2 biological ship sets as well. We've got the Shellcraft, which of course is crabs in space, and the Spinivores. I have to say that the Spinivores definitely leave me feeling rather uncomfortable. I don't know what it is, but the longer Stellaris iterates through new DLC, new patches, the more I start to feel that the spiritualists were right. Anyway, different types of ships prompted the UX designer to give the ship set selector a fresh coat of paint. Here you can see on Shellcraft a juvenile Stinger, there's some information about that, and also a description of the ship set type, biological. Did you know there is a massive sale going on right now for Stellaris and Stellaris DLC on the Paradox store? If there are still a few DLC you need to add to your collection and you'd also like to support this channel, you can do so by following the link down in the description below to the Paradox store to buy the Steam keys for those DLC. Alternatively, you could also just head to the Paradox store and use our code MONTUPLAYS when you purchase absolutely anything from the Paradox store, because we now have a Paradox affiliate link. Let's now look at the growth cycles of our biological ships. Similar to space fauna from Grand Archive, biological ships have growth stages, but unlike space fauna, they do not naturally progress through these by aging. Instead, these ships have a unique component slot for supplementary organs that can be researched. Generally speaking, the juvenile and mature growth stages will likely be occupied by growth organs that allow the ships to progress to the next stage. Here we can see accelerated juvenile growth gland. It has a food cost, a food upkeep, and grants +2 growth progress I'm assuming every month. Alternatively, you can dock a fleet at a starbase equipped with a growth chamber. This allows for additional growth regardless of ship configuration, meaning you could choose to not have any of those juvenile growth glands on any of your ships. Instead, just put some growth chambers down that are going to grant +2 growth progress rate for every ship docked, but at the cost of +100% ship upkeep. Normally, docked ships have a reduced upkeep. In this case, you're looking at doubled upkeep in order to grow a bit. Very, very nasty. The accumulated growth progress for ships is shown both in the ship's tooltip, which we can see right here. At the bottom, we've got total growth progress towards the next stage, which is mature Mauler, at 6 of 60. Monthly growth progress +2, meaning time until next growth stage, 27 months. Not that long at all. Important to note here, we are still going to need some alloys for ship upkeep, so alloys won't be entirely useless if you take the biological ship set, because look, this Mauler ship has 0.4 alloy upkeep and a small amount of energy upkeep. I'm guessing they've done that for balance reasons, though I'm not entirely sure why the ship needs to eat alloys. I guess it's like people eating iron, I suppose. The other place that you can see the growth progress is the ship details window. Here you can see below cloaking strength maturation cycle, and if you hover over that, all of the same information you got from the tooltip regarding the growth stage. When biological ships are designed, either automatically or by using the ship designer, all researched growth stages are configured as part of a single ship design. Once a biological ship has acquired sufficient growth progress, it will automatically change to using the next growth stage in its design. Alternatively, biological ships can be constructed at a shipyard at a later growth stage, so you can choose to build your ships already matured, pre-matured, I guess, if you want to put it that way. For example, in the image here, we've got the 3 stages of a weaver, left to right, bottom, juvenile, mature, and then super adult, extra spiny, grossalicious, I guess. These all could be built at these stages, or you could build one of the 2 earlier stages and make it mature upwards. The choice will be entirely up to you. I imagine that it'll cost more, and actually we're going to see that a little bit later. It's going to cost you a lot more to build a ship at a later maturation stage, so it would be cheaper if you have the time to build them young and then grow them up. On the other hand, if you just need ships quickly, you're going to have to pay extra resources. That is the backstory on how all of this growth works. Now let's dive into the 4 new ship classes, starting off with the Maulers. Maulers primarily focus on short-range combat with shield penetration and high damage to armor and shields. Equipped with melee-ranged mandible weapons and either short-range S-slot or point defense slot weapons, these ships will form the bulk of your navy in the early game. Their unique mandible weapons have similar damage scaling against star bases and larger ships as torpedoes. So these ships basically look very, very similar to your frigate class ships at level 1. As you get them up to the mature stage, level 3, they are still definitely frigates, but they're a lot more powerful. Why is that? Well, they get more slots. So the level 3 version has 2 G slots and 2 PD or 2 S slots. Double torpedoes or torpedo equivalents here with these mandible weapons, snip snip, are going to be very strong if you're fighting against early star bases or star base defenses. These ships may struggle though if they come up against small corvette craft, regular mechanical corvettes. Let's also notice here that the ships definitely have a reasonably large alloy cost. Yes, there's a big cost here in food. That's 450 food and 100 alloys for a corvette that, looking at this roughly mid-game, it's tier 3 defenses and weaponry. I'd estimate this to be costing around 150 to 200 alloys, with 200 being the maximum upper limit you could really be reaching with a frigate or corvette. Replacing that 50 to 80 alloy cost with 450 food doesn't necessarily seem like good value for money. Food is worth about 4 times as much as an alloy on the market, but you're having to pay over 8 times as much, possibly, depending on exactly what you're comparing this thing to. That being said, you can stack many more bonuses onto food production than you can onto alloy production, so maybe that's a balanced number. We'll just have to see when it releases. All of the biological ships come with some unique organ components. The Maulers get access to corrosive fluids. This would grant at the base level plus 5% mandible weapons damage and 5% additional armor damage. As you level it up, you'll obviously get more. The other organ they have access to is the metabolic recycler. This would increase the sublight speed by 5% of the ship and evasion chance by 2% at the lowest level, and go higher and higher as you level up. And if you're enjoying this video, please metabolically recycle that like button. Weavers are support ships. They make use of unique weapons that we've actually never seen before in Stellaris, to apply powerful buffs to their allies or debuffs to their enemies. This is going to really shake up the meta in the game, I'm fairly confident, if these weapons turn out to be powerful and useful. If they have no impact, then things may stay stagnant, but overall I'm not entirely sure which way this is going to go. So, Weavers have unique access to an array of 6 support components, each with 6 tiers that belong in the PD slots. The first 3 of these 6 PD weapons are supportive. These are guns that you'll be firing at your own ships. Why are we going to do that? Well, they're going to be helping us. First off, we have the Adaptive Spore Launcher. This one I am particularly excited about. Why is that? Well, on a hit, you will repair 70 hull points or armor, whichever I think needs repairing, and then apply a modifier of 20% armor hardening and 2.5% armor and hull daily regen. You can get, looking at the previous images, at least 4 of these on a single Weaver. That means you could repair 280 hull or arm points every 4 days, 4.25 days in game per Weaver. A Weaver uses up 2 fleet commands, so compared to a battleship, we can have 4 of these. 4 Weavers with these point defense weapons, or helpers should I say, can restore over 1,000 hull or armor points every 4 days. That's 250 hull points a day to one other battleship. That could be enough in an even engagement to basically prevent the enemy from doing much damage. When we get to the equivalent of battleship classes later on, you'll see why this is really going to be very, very scary and possibly useful, given that biological battleships are basically twice as good as regular battleships. Then we have the Aura Caster. This one boosts your fire rate and weapons range by quite a helpful 20%, and also gives you some armor and shield penetration. This lasts 10 days and can be fired every 4.25 days like the previous ship weapon. The weapon focus here is spread fire, meaning I think it's going to target lots of ships rather than just a single ship. Last but possibly not least, we have the Electro Sprayer, granting a flat plus 20 evasion chance, plus 40% sublight speed, and 10% combat disengagement chance. That will last 10 days and be able to fire every 4 days. I suspect combining this with some cruisers, something that is not quite at 90% evasion but can get up there, would be very, very strong. So these are really, in terms of the combat balance in the game, a massive shake-up. Let's now look at the debuffing weapons that Weavers have access to. When it comes to weapons that Weavers have to target enemy ships, we have first off the Degradation Beam. This will reduce the enemy's fire rate and weapons range by 20% and give them -5 tracking. Combining some degradation beams with the previous weapon beam that's going to grant additional evasion, the Electro Sprayer, could be really quite potent. The Pinion Accelerator is going to reduce evasion chance by 20, reduce sublight speed by 40%, and increase focus fire effect by 10%. I don't know exactly what that increased focus fire effect means, but I would like to know more. This is going to be very useful for targeting corvettes and destroyers, anything at that very high evasion percentage chance, because it's not -20% evasion according to this tooltip, it is a flat -20 evasion. Last but by no means least, we have the Ruin Barbs. These have a range of 100, so it's a lot higher range, but quite a long cooldown of 12.75. However, what they can do is very, very odd. They have an up to 75% chance to confuse military ships for 5 to 10 days based on target ship size. Confused ships lose the ability to differentiate between allies and enemies, causing them to attack indiscriminately. Yes, getting some Ruin Barbs onto the enemy ships could just sow so much confusion. They are going to, especially if you're outnumbered, deal much more damage to themselves than they will to you. The unique organ components that Weavers have access to are symbiotic amplifiers and developmental pheromones. The basic symbiotic amplifier increases the support weapon fire rate and suppressor weapon fire rate by 5% alongside weapons range. Higher levels will be increasing that more. That means you're going to be hitting at more than every 4 days. If we can maximize our weapon fire rate, if we can get, plus 100% here, the bonus to getting more hull points or armor repaired, if we can get that down to like every 2 days or something, it could be almost unstoppable. You could have basically an unkillable fleet that can only be stopped with massive alpha strike potential from some giant X-slot weapons. If only the biological ship set had an answer to something like that. We'll take a look very soon. The other organ they have is developmental pheromones. That will affect the entire fleet, granting +1 growth rate progress, but plus 50% military ship upkeep. This aura only applies to biological ships capable of growth, so you won't get that 50% additional military ships upkeep if you cannot grow anymore. I wonder if this can stack. If it can, you could get a couple of Weavers with developmental pheromones and just move them around your ships, your fleets I should say, to level them up. The Weavers were Stellaris' first Cleric class ship. Now let's take a little look at the Harbingers. Harbingers are carriers capable of deploying large amounts of strike craft and supporting them with point defense or long-range missiles. Here we can see the first ship type, which has got lots and lots of those basically amoeba fighters. They're not quite amoeba flagella fighters, but we'll see exactly what they are in a moment. This is the Picket version, which has lots of point defense. As you can see, this doesn't cost that many alloys. It's basically the equivalent of a cruiser for biological ships, but it does cost a lot of food. That's almost 3,500 food for a single cruiser equivalent ship. Ouch. The other class, which I think will be the more powerful one, is the artillery class. This doesn't actually have missiles. I believe it has torpedoes. Those torpedoes look to be the equivalent of neutron launchers. So we've got a ship here which has all neutron launchers and all fighters. That could be very, very powerful. I suspect much more powerful than the Picket class ship we previously looked at. The main strength here actually though being those 4 G-slot weapons. This, as far as I'm aware, is basically equivalent to a normal cruiser that I think can get, it might just be 3 actually, but it could, no, it's 3 G-slot weapons on it. However, getting those extra fighter bays, 4 of them, that does seem stronger overall. Overall so far, we haven't seen the Battleship version yet, but I'm feeling the biological ships are slightly stronger, definitely a bit wacky, but slightly stronger overall. Strikecraft for empires using biological ships are deployed in greater numbers per fighter wing, but they do have reduced hull points and armor instead of shields. You can see here that we get 16 units rather than the normal 8, I want to say. Average damage is 40, I think that's slightly lower. Their speed looks to be about the same at 700, evasion at 80%, but we've got their 6 hull points and 12 armor points. Same engagement range, 100% tracking and accuracy, that all looks very, very normal. I haven't obviously tested this component, but my suspicion would be this would fall prey to low-level PD much more easily, or low-level flak I should say. However, at higher levels, you're actually going to be over-damaging these fighters, so you're not really going to be killing more of them. They might even be swarming you. When it comes to unique organs, Harbingers get the chitin growth regulators. These are going to increase your engagement range of your ships by 5% at the lowest level and give you some much needed additional strikecraft armor. I think that plus 5 armor points at level 1 is going to be even higher at higher levels and could kind of mitigate the low armor and hull you have with your strikecraft, these bio strikecraft. The other organ we've got is the incubation matrix. Again, increasing the ship engagement range, but this time reducing strikecraft cooldown, which I believe means the time between generating a new strikecraft. I don't think that's the fire rate of the strikecraft themselves. I think that's the time to generate a new strikecraft. If you aren't already sitting down, I suggest you take a seat as I introduce you to the new most powerful ship in Stellaris, the Stinger. Stingers are powerful, and you've got that right, late game warships equipped with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 X-slot weapons at the highest level. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is 4 X-slot weapons on a single ship, which is of battleship size. You could strip everything else out of this ship, get rid of the L-slot weapons, get rid of the defenses and the armor, and simply run 4 X-slot weapons. At the lower costs you're paying for one of these ships, you can go toe-to-toe with probably 4 other battleships that are going to cost much more than your one single ship at 3,000 food and 1,000 alloys. Of course, without armor and L-slot weapons, that's going to be a hell of a lot lower. Oh my god, this seems busted and broken. Combine that, maybe we keep some of the armor in and the hull, combine that with our earlier weavers, which have the ability to generate additional hull points and armor points on our ships, we can basically run a battleship plus 4 weavers and still have double the number of X slots compared to a regular set of 2 battleships that will occupy the same amount of fleet size. Holy crap. Oh yeah, and then we'll be getting plus 1,000 hull points every 4 days or less. Wow. Wow. This just seems really strong, especially against the late game end game crisis. If you're facing an end game crisis, you want to do a 25 times all crisis run, you need these ships, because the only weapons that are going to count realistically against those late game crisis ships are going to be the X-slot artillery weapons that can hit from long range and hit with high damage. You'll want the arc emitters, and you'll want 4 of them per Stinger battleship. Holy crap. I think these might also be basically better and cheaper versions of the Enigma battle cruisers. These have more X-slots than an Enigma battlecruiser that costs twice as many alloys. Yes, ignoring the food income, but twice as many alloys. Wow. And I guess if you just hate winning, you could also go with the line version of a Stinger. I suppose this ship has some disruptors, medium disruptors, and some L slots on. Yeah. But if you do ever choose to build one of these line class Stingers over an artillery Stinger, that's fine. Please make sure to retire your all of your admirals and delete every single commander you've got, remove all your admirals, and get rid of your head of navy, because they probably all quit. Because why you'd run one of these things over an artillery Stinger, I just don't know. Wow. I don't, at this point, why does it matter? You're just putting icing on a very good cake. It's a win more mechanic, but yeah, you can get some organ clusters on your 4X slots if you really want. Either you can get the heat exhaust, giving you more fire rate and tracking, or you can get the rangefinder. This is the one I think here actually, for 5% more ship's weapons range and +5 tracking. The one thing that X slots lack is tracking, so let's give you 4 X slot weapons and more tracking. Oh my god! What are they? Whoever... What? I mean, let's find out if this is balanced. Let's just calm down. Sorry about your eardrums, ladies and gentlemen, if I burst them a moment ago. Yes, let's move on. As each of the different growth stages of each of the classes of biological ships can be built at a shipyard, the developers have taken the opportunity to implement collapsible headers when selecting which ships to build. I think this is going to work even for mechanical ships and space fauna as well. So when you've got multiple different types of a ship under the same class, so they're all battleships, but they're different classes of battleships. Sorry, same hull, different class. This will make things easier to sort through. You want to look at your battleships? Well, that should be collapsible now, in and out. This, I think, is quite a nice little update. Yeah, well done. Nice little improvement they've snuck in there. Thank you, devs. But also, just give me my 4X slots. Just give them to me now. Given biological ships have their own weapons, armor, shield, and core components, the developers have gone through and ensured that the technologies use the appropriate icons depending on if you're using a biological ship set or not. It looks, though, like all of the weapons and defenses you have for regular ships are going to be mirrored for biological ships. They'll simply have some different artwork. They will look just a little bit different. We're going to go through now and look at some lovely images of some of the ships. I'm just going to get them to scroll through your screen while we talk about the craziness that is these 4X slots. I mean, honestly, it just seems really strong. When I first saw this, this just seems very, very strong. And my question is, are you sure? I'm going to say yes, please, and thank you to getting 4X slots on a single ship, but this just is starting to feel like tachyon destroyers. If you've been around that long, basically, if you haven't been around long enough, let me explain. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you could equip tachyon lances on your destroyers that would have very high evasion. It would just be silly. Yes, you don't quite have the evasion on these battleships, but you're going to have 4X slots, plus a combat computer of sorts, I'm assuming. I'm assuming the organs are not replacing combat computers, because it looks like there is also a combat computer too. The organs are simply going to be giving you additional bonuses on top of the combat computer. So getting weapons range on top of weapons range is just this with 4X slots. Because what's going to happen here basically is you're going to rock up with your mechanical ships. You're going to see a navy that seems roughly equivalent. It may even look weaker than yours if they've not bothered to put their L slot weapons on or their defenses. They're going to rock up and they're just going to go zap, 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 and your ships will be gone before probably you've even had a chance to fire, because they will have longer range on you, meaning they'll get 1, possibly 2, maybe even 3 salvos of those X slot weapons in before you've even gotten into range to shoot them. And if you do get into range to start shooting them, they might just heal up faster than you can deal damage. Even if you're coming in with your own X slots, yeah, they're going to have more X slots than you, so you kind of might want to go for some torpedoes or something, but that, yeah, how... You get, yeah, oh my goodness, this is going to be really interesting. I really want to get my hands on these and test out what these ships are like in the game, because it could be that the age of robots is dead and the age of the meat machines, or the bios, has truly arrived. Don't forget, if you want to get your hands on Stellaris Season 9, Stellaris Biogenesis, or anything from the Paradox store, you can do so using our link or inserting our code MONTUPLAYS at the checkout, and you'll also be supporting this channel. Next week, we're going to be looking at the Ascensions, Traditions, and Advanced Governments. Until that time, if you'd like to find out some more information about Stellaris Season 9 and all of the features that are going to be included in Stellaris Biogenesis, you'll probably want to click on the video on screen now.